Welcome, folks, to the next episode of BattleTech Simplified. I'm Michael Shockman, I'll be your host and commentator, and in today's episode we'll be covering the mech that by many is considered to be the ultimate expression of heavy mech power on the battlefield. The early assault mech in a heavy mech form of the Star League in its early days. Today we'll be covering the Warhammer. The Warhammer Battle Mech was introduced by Starcore Industries in 2515 to be a mobile mech with enough firepower to destroy or severely damage any mech of the same weight class or lower. In the mission it was designed for, the Warhammer proved to be a very capable mech, and for centuries practically defined the entire class of heavy mechs. Boasting incredible firepower and respectable armoring, the Warhammer served prominently in the Star League Defense Force and was one of the premier mechs in the Gunslinger program. Indeed, many of the greatest mech warriors in history were Warhammer pilots. After the fall of Star League, the Warhammer continued to serve in the armies of the Great Houses during the Succession Wars. Its longevity was helped by the large number of Warhammer factories spread across the Inner Sphere and periphery. Despite relatively low production rates, Ronin Inc. was never able to build more than 5 Warhammers a year from their Wallace factory. The recovery of the Helm Memory Core would spur on the creation of new Lost Tech using Warhammer variants by Inner Sphere manufacturers, while the periphery continued to build the original models for mercenaries and black marketers. The design found a new lease of life after the clan invasion when Starcore decided to revitalize the ancient battle mech with the latest in technological improvements. Initially, the company was to build just one new variant from its Crofton plant, but as news of the plan spread through other departments within Starcore began to involve themselves in the program and descended upon Crofton for a week-long conference to hash out the particulars. The conference ended up being more celebratory than anticipated, and at the end of the Bacchanalian negotiations, quote-unquote, it was eventually decided 4 new variants were to be built, one each for the Federated Sons, Capellan Confederation, Free Worlds League, and Lyran militaries, using technology unique to each realm. Some examples of these new mechs achieved their baptism under fire during the FedCom Civil War. The primary weapons of the Warhammer 6R were a pair of arm-mounted Donnell PPCs, which used highly charged accelerated particles to cause significant amounts of damage to enemy mechs at long ranges. Together, both PPCs provided the combined firepower of an autocannon 20, with much longer range bracket. For close combat situations, the Warhammer carried 2 Martel medium lasers and 2 Magna small lasers, one of each in either side torso. To exploit any weak points in an enemy's armor, a Holly's SRM-6 launcher was carried over the right shoulder, with 1 ton of reloads in the corresponding side torso. Finally, as an effective deterrent against infantry attacks, 2 Sperry Browning machine guns were split up between either side torso, with 1 ton of ammunition carried in the center torso. The Warhammer was well protected by 10 tons of armoring, while the use of 18 heatsinks gave it the freedom to fire and maneuver without concern. The 16-ton fusion engine powering the mech gave it a cruising speed of 43.2 kph and a top speed of 64.8 kph, fast enough to keep pace with the action of most engagements. The electronics on the mech, though dated by the time of the 31st century, were simple and effective, allowing it to assume command duties when needed. The targeting system in particular utilized a special searchlight mounted over the left shoulder of the mech. The device could function as a standard searchlight or tie in directly to the OP-1500 ARB tracking system, which made the mech a very effective night fighter. As for my personal feelings on the Warhammer, ladies and gentlemen, honestly, I think it's one of the best mechs in the entire game. I was kind of surprised to find out recently that for a long time during the publication of the game, it didn't even appear in most technical readouts, most game books, and everything like that. And just truly being honest, I don't know why it didn't show up. I would imagine it had something to do with copyright infringement or something of that nature. I know that not Sarna, but FASA for a long time was having some issues with Harmony Gold. So not really sure what that's about. But regardless, I think that the Warhammer, for what it's intended for, fulfills that purpose perfectly. And as Tex from Tex Talks BattleTech pointed out, while many mech producers were trying to build the best and the most and everything that was great, Starcore in the Warhammer built what was just good enough for the purpose at hand, and in that they did perfectly. Anyway, folks, thank you so much for joining me. Hope you have enjoyed this episode. Stay tuned for next week when we finish up this season on heavy mechs with our 75-ton entry. If you liked the video, please consider subscribing and also liking the video and checking out the links down in the description if you want to learn more. I'm Michael Schockman. I've been your host and commentator. And remember, guys, no guts, no galaxy. Later, everybody.